No, it is on, but hello. Ladies and gentlemen, could I please have your attention just for a brief ceremonial cutting of the ribbon to launch the ILO Centenary, and in doing so welcome the ILO Director General and the officers of the governing body to cut the ribbon, take one small step from the past and one giant leap to the future. Thank you. Please do.
Wild dreams turn reality, a new way from ashes of the old. For the people who don't have all the riches, it's the right to live and not simply exist. But we want the bread and we need decent work too. I'll stand here beside you to guide you across all the rubble. I'll be a partner, a universal peace, seeking social justice. 'Cause together we're strong and it won't be long. No, a new age is here, and we've got the vision. All the justice we've been bridging ain't the better way. 100 years on this mission for the human condition. Read all about it. The world is a place you can't survive without a living. This world is a place you can't survive without a living. No, no. Together we can make it, and together we persist. Together we can make it. Together we persist. We'll go as far as we can. We've been working for this chance, better future, better ways. We deserve better days.
Ladies and gentlemen, distinguished guests and colleagues, a very warm welcome to you here to this nice sunny Geneva afternoon for the launch of the ILO Centenary. I might just wait for my voice to travel down to the other end of the colonnade. Yes. Thank you all very much. I think we are almost quiet enough, and I'm sure what is about to occur will also create some more peace in the room. As I say, it is a great pleasure to invite you all here this afternoon for the launch of the ILO Centenary. Under the hubbub, as we walked along our brand new centenary carpet, you may have heard some music in the background. It is the new ILO Centenary song, and it's now available online, and I'm sure will be top of the pop charts, if they still have those sort of things, by the end of the week globally. Before I invite our speakers this afternoon to address you, though, I would ask that you all turn to your nearest screen, and we will just show you a short video to introduce the ILO Centenary. And if we can have some quiet while you're watching it, because it is important that you can either read or listen to the soundtrack. So if I can ask our technical colleagues to please open the video. Thank you.
whereas universal and lasting peace can be established only if it is based upon social justice.
Considerando que existen condiciones de trabajo que entrañan tal grado de injusticia, miseria y privaciones para gran número de seres humanos.
以致产生如此巨大的动荡，使世界和平与和谐遭受危害。
Принимая во внимание срочную необходимость улучшения этих условий.
Par exemple, en ce qui concerne la réglementation des heures de travail, la fixation d'une durée maximum de la journée et de la semaine de travail,
Regelung des Arbeitsmarktes, Verhütung der Arbeitslosigkeit,
وتوفير أجر يكفل ظروف معيشة مناسبة.
Protección del trabajador contra las enfermedades, sean o no profesionales, y contra los accidentes de trabajo.
La protection des enfants, des adolescents et des femmes.
Пенсии по старости и инвалидности.
protection of the interests of workers when employed in countries other than their own. Anerkennung des Grundsatzes gleicher Lohn für gleichwertige Arbeit.
承认结社自由的原则。
Organización de la enseñanza profesional y técnica y otras medidas análogas.
Attendu que la non-adoption par une nation quelconque d'un régime de travail réellement humain
is an obstacle in the way of other nations which desire to improve the conditions in their own countries.
فإن الأطراف السامية المتعاقدة تقرر مدفوعة بمشاعر العدالة والإنسانية.
А также желанием обеспечить прочный мир во всем мире.
并为实现本序言所提出的各项目标
Agree to the following constitution of the International Labour Organization.
The ILO has a constitutional responsibility to build a future of work which corresponds to our mandated goals of social justice. We have 100 years of experience in making our world a fairer, safer place to work and a better place to live.
Thank you very much. And the significance of that video, for those of you who weren't close enough to either hear the words or see the transcript, is that is, of course, the dialogue of the preamble to the ILO Constitution, written 100 years ago, and of course showing how relevant that Constitution, that preamble is still to the problems facing the world today. So congratulations to our colleagues in the Communications Department for the production of that video, and it will also be available for download on the ILO website. It's now with great pleasure to move into the formalities that I introduce the Director General of the ILO, Mr. Guy Ryder, to welcome you, and to launch the ILO Centenary. Director General.
Excellencies, Minister, Ambassadors, members of the Global Commission on the Future of Work, distinguished representatives of the Ville et Canton de Genève, members of the United Nations family, my ILO colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, it is indeed an exceptional honour and a pleasure to welcome every one of you here this afternoon for this genuinely historic event, the launching of the centenary of the International Labour Organization. Et nous sommes très honorés de la présence des représentants de la Confédération suisse, notre État hôte, et de la ville et canton de Genève. Monsieur Antonio Rogers, président du Conseil d'État, Monsieur Jean Romain, président du Grand Conseil, Monsieur Sami Kanan, maire de Genève, Monsieur Jacques Moret, directeur général de la ville de Genève, et notre ami Yvon Pictet, président de la Fondation pour Genève. Au BIT, nous travaillons, nous vivons entre les Genevoises et les Genevois. Et nous sommes fiers de cela et nous sommes reconnaissants de l'appui et de l'hospitalité qui nous est offert. Merci. Ladies and gentlemen, for 100 years now, the governments, workers, and employers of the world have come together in this House, moved by the conviction of its founding fathers that universal and lasting peace depends upon social justice, and by a common determination to work together for that cause, notably by the adoption and the supervision of international labour standards. And what has been described as a wild dream at its origin has turned out to be something else, a century of endeavour and achievement, during which the ILO has been a locomotive of social progress and a harbinger of peace in the world. But it's not been a smooth journey. If indeed the arc of history does bend towards justice, it's nevertheless taken some rather long detours along the way. By the time the ILO reached its 25th anniversary in 1944, perhaps its greatest achievement was its very survival. That group of 42 founding member states had by then grown only marginally to 49. But by that time, the organization had already come through the Great Depression, a dark period of authoritarianism, global conflict, the collapse of the rest of the multilateral system, exile of the organization, to lay the foundations for its future success as the first specialized agency of the United Nations. And that 25th anniversary was commemorated not here in our historic home, Geneva, but in our wartime refuge in Montreal, in Canada. And it was marked as well by the adoption of the extraordinary Declaration of Philadelphia, as remarkable a statement of visionary intent for a world emerging from cataclysmic conflict as was the ILO Constitution of 1919. The following 25 years were ones of explosive growth as the ILO's membership increased by nearly 2.5 times to 119 member states, as decolonization brought independence and freedom to so many peoples. And the ILO then was challenged to meet the needs of the governments, employers, and the workers of these new states, and did so by developing its technical cooperation programs into the crucial means of action that they are today. So it was more than casual symbolism when the ILO marked its 50th anniversary by launching the World Employment Programme. This was a true watershed in international development policy, with its focus on employment, on poverty, and on basic needs, and I think whose effects can still be felt in the United Nations 2030 Sustainable Development Agenda. And it was also that year, 1969, that the ILO was awarded the Nobel Peace Prize, prestigious recognition of what it had done in its first 50 years, but perhaps more than that, powerful encouragement for the next 50. And so by the time we got to our 75th anniversary, the ILO had added a further 55 member states, bringing it close to universal membership in a world that was itself standing on the threshold of the era of globalization. By that time, the confrontation between two ideological and political systems had come to an end. The crime of apartheid had been defeated, with the ILO playing its full part in that victory of humanity. And we were pleased to welcome President Mandela to our conference shortly afterwards, and we are proud, Minister, that our centenary coincides with President Mandela's centenary this year. Ladies and gentlemen, some foresaw at that time, wrongly, an end to history with the triumph of a universal market economy. But in fact, this was the beginning of a new and challenging chapter in the ILO's history, as the world sought a social dimension to a period of globalization driven by liberalization of trade and investment and supercharged by successive technological revolutions. And the ILO delivered with its Declaration of Fundamental Principles and Rights at Work, and then a year later, in 1999, its Decent Work Agenda, jobs, social protection, tripartism and rights, which today stands at the center of the world's roadmap for the future. Ladies and gentlemen, what can we learn from this remarkable history? Well, most obviously, that it would be a very brave or perhaps a very foolish person who would venture with confidence a prediction of where the ILO and the world will be 25 years on from now. But more importantly, it demonstrates that the ILO has always had to adapt to new challenges, new circumstances, and has been able to do so successfully. And had that not been the case, I very much doubt that we would be celebrating this centenary today. And this was exactly what Director General David Morse said when he received the Nobel Prize on behalf of the International Labour Organization 50 years ago. He said that every time the ILO seemed to have found successful solutions to the social issues of the day, new and often unforeseen issues came up. And so the organization could never rest on its laurels. It had constantly to reappraise the world of work, review its own methods, and reinvent itself in order to stay relevant. And on this day of celebration of the ILO Centenary, we take that message to heart. We do so with the launch of the report of the Global Commission on the Future of Work, and we begin the process that I trust will lead to the adoption by the ILO Centenary Conference in June of a Centenary Declaration. In these times of transformative change at work, of great uncertainty, and even a certain disillusionment about the capacity of policymakers to provide credible responses to the global challenges that the future of work poses, it is surely more important than ever that the ILO demonstrate once more that capacity for renewal and for reinvention. In the ideas, or rather the ideals, formulated 100 years ago, the ILO possesses the moral compass to guide its decisions. It has the values by which it must assess all changes in the world of work. Our task is to shape the emerging realities of our time into conformity with those values and not the reverse. And it is by combining the clarity of our unchanging principles with flexibility and innovation in the tools that we use to achieve them that the ILO will succeed in the future as it has in the past. And ladies and gentlemen, however formidable the challenges today may appear, they are surely no greater than those that the women and men who went before us in the ILO confronted and overcame, except perhaps in one regard, which comes from an observation that today we appear to be losing the will and the capacity for dialogue. Too frequently, it seems more difficult to listen and to weigh honestly the views of the other against one's own, to be tolerant and to reach for compromise rather than the imposition of one's own will. And these are tendencies that need to be resisted, because if they prevail, I believe that the work of the ILO becomes impossible and its values would fall. And that is why I wish to end by echoing the central message of the report of our Global Commission. that it is urgent for all of us, representatives of governments, employers and workers of our now 187 member states, and all of our allies, to rededicate ourselves to reinvigorating the social contract that was and is at the heart of the ILO's mandate. That basic commitment for us all to work together to defend not only our own interests, but those of others, so that social justice is available to all, with none left behind and all moving forward in this new ILO century. I thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Director General. And now, before introducing our officers of the governing body, I'd just also like to issue a welcome to our colleagues all around the world, sitting either in meeting rooms or in front of their desks, participating virtually this afternoon. So I hope, even though it's from a distance, you will get some enjoyment out of this afternoon as well. If I could now turn to our constituent representatives, the officers of the governing body, and with great pleasure invite the President of the ILO governing body, His Excellent Ambassador Claude de la Puente. Please, Ambassador.
Sus Excelencias, señor Presidente del Consejo de Estado de Ginebra, señor Alcalde de Ginebra, distinguidos representantes del Gobierno de la Confederación Suiza, señor Director General, distinguidos miembros de la Mesa, distinguidos miembros de la Comisión del Futuro del Trabajo, funcionarios y empleados de la Organización Internacional del Trabajo, damas y caballeros. Agradezco la oportunidad, voy a hablar despacio en español. Agradezco la oportunidad de intervenir en esta importante ceremonia en la que se da lanzamiento a las actividades de celebración del centenario de la Organización Internacional del Trabajo. La ocasión del primer centenario de la OIT nos invita a reflexionar sobre el papel fundamental que desde su creación ha tenido en la protección de los derechos laborales y en el incansable empeño de construir un mundo en el que prevalezca la justicia social. Tenemos el privilegio de ser parte de una de las organizaciones más antiguas del sistema internacional e iniciamos con singular entusiasmo este año emblemático. A la vez de recordar con gratitud algunas de las personalidades señeras en la génesis y la consolidación institucional de la OIT, debemos al mismo tiempo rendir tributo a los millones de personajes anónimos, a los protagonistas de los procesos de larga maduración, al espíritu solidario que ha dado fortaleza a esta organización, mirando en perspectiva que las legítimas aspiraciones de realización individual van de la mano con el esfuerzo colectivo en la construcción de sociedades más justas y prósperas. Una mirada, en suma, al hombre como parte de la sociedad, como verdadero agente activo de la historia. Las actividades y temas prioritarios del centenario tienen como punto central el futuro del trabajo. El informe de la Comisión Mundial que fue presentado esta mañana identifica una serie de nuevos desafíos a enfrentar y a los que debe adaptarse el mundo del trabajo, así como una suerte de diagnóstico en el que se hacen visibles muchas de las megatendencias que caracterizan al sistema internacional. Si bien podemos observar indicios alentadores sobre la evolución de la situación del trabajo a lo largo de los años, como el incremento de la participación de la mujer en el mundo laboral la disminución del desempleo en algunos países o la creciente ratificación de convenios de la OIT, es necesario reconocer que el futuro del trabajo plantea una variedad de escenarios que se perfilan según los niveles de desarrollo y las características de los países, así como la marcada desigualdad que lamentablemente aumenta en algunas regiones. Es sin duda una época de cambios acelerados en lo que es previsible que ocurra. Inicialmente esperamos solamente un desplazamiento y reemplazo de la fuerza laboral por nuevas tecnologías. Sin embargo, es también la oportunidad de revitalizar la fuerza laboral y dotarla de nuevas herramientas a través de la capacitación y la educación continua de los trabajadores. Estamos ante un fenómeno inédito por su velocidad, pero también de alguna manera una constante a través de la historia. Baste recordar los profundos cambios económicos y sociales que sobrevinieron a la Revolución Industrial. Por ello, tengo una visión optimista y pienso que en el largo plazo, como ya ha sucedido en el pasado, los desafíos que actualmente enfrenta el mundo del trabajo representan una oportunidad. Confiemos en la capacidad creadora, el liderazgo y el ingenio del ser humano para dar el mejor uso y aprovechamiento a los avances de la tecnología, sin someterse a ella y poniéndola más bien al servicio del bien común y al progreso de la humanidad. Es pertinente recordar que el foco de nuestra atención es el ser humano y la necesidad de proteger los derechos laborales y generar las condiciones para que exista un trabajo digno y decente, y que el trabajo sea una fuente de creación de riqueza y conjuntamente con la actividad de los negocios y empresarios y el marco regulador que corresponde a los gobiernos, complementen sus esfuerzos fortaleciendo el diálogo social y los consensos tripartitos que caracterizan a la OIT. Estos altos objetivos constituyen la poderosa razón que explica la existencia de nuestra centenaria organización, que surgió de la paz bajo la convicción de que la justicia social es esencial para alcanzar una paz universal y permanente. En esta perspectiva, y voy a finalizar y ruego un poco de paciencia, en esta perspectiva es importante que nuestra organización, tan singular en el sistema internacional, en su segundo siglo de vida, continúe siendo un espacio y un vehículo útil para la construcción de consensos indispensables en base al tripartismo que la caracteriza y que contribuya a la generación de políticas sanas y transparentes, generadoras de riqueza y de justicia, que ayude a fortalecer modelos de desarrollo que beneficie a todos, en donde confluyan en una aproximación constructiva los intereses de los trabajadores, empleadores y gobiernos, en un esfuerzo dirigido al bien común y al bienestar de nuestras sociedades. Para finalizar, por ello, al reconocer la necesidad de mantener el espíritu de los principios fundacionales de la organización, debemos asumir con realismo y renovado compromiso que la preservación de la relevancia y la vigencia de las instituciones requiere necesariamente de que éstas tengan la capacidad de adaptarse a los cambios y a los nuevos desafíos. Debemos, pues, felicitarnos por estos primeros 100 años de fructífera labor de la OIT, pero no seamos autocomplacientes. Por el contrario, seamos optimistas, pero exigentes en nuestras respectivas responsabilidades para asegurar que la OIT continúe ubicada en el lugar central internacional, fortaleciendo el tripartismo y optimizando su capacidad institucional para acometer con éxito los enormes desafíos que nos plantea un mundo del trabajo en vertiginosa evolución y para acercarnos cada vez más a los objetivos de justicia social y trabajo decente para todos. Estamos convencidos de que la OIT estará a la altura de este histórico reto. Muchas gracias por su atención.
Thank you, Ambassador. We also took the opportunity today, as well as celebrating the centenary, to celebrate this wonderful building and particularly the colonnade. The trouble is, as we discover, a little noise at that end turns into a massive noise as it travels through the building. So could I kindly ask people just to be very conscious of the noise around them so that we can hear the speakers and so that we can all enjoy the presentations that are being given to us this afternoon. It is now my pleasure to turn to our social partners on the governing body and would first like to invite the Workers' Vice President of the governing body, Ms. Cataline Passier, to say a few words. Thank you.
Good afternoon. Buenas tardes. Et merci aux autorités genevoises et suisses d'être ici avec nous. It's an honor and a privilege for me to represent here today the voice of workers in the ILO. We cannot underestimate the importance of the ILO for the trade union movement and workers globally. For many of us, this may be the only place in the world where we can speak and act on workers' rights freely and without fear for prosecution. Let me remind you of the bold and visionary step that was taken in 1919 to establish this organization with its unique three-dimensional mandate. And it has been mentioned before, social justice as a precondition for peace, but also tripartite governance with shared power between governments, employers, and workers to establish democracy in the world of work, and regulation to ensure a level playing field for protection of workers against the forces of globalization driving down wages and working conditions. As we see inequality, populism, and xenophobia on the rise, many regions torn apart by conflict, and shrinking democratic space, we must ensure that the ILO will be as bold and ambitious entering its second centenary as it was 100 years ago. Let me also remind you of the key principle enshrined in the Philadelphia Declaration of 1944, that labor is not a commodity. Human beings cannot be bought and sold as goods, but deserve a working life in dignity. This seems to be an undeniable basic truth. However, in the real world and the business models of today, we see an enormous increase in commodified labor, leading to insecurity and precarious work, and sometimes even slavery, with business reaping the profits but not taking any responsibility for it, leaving vulnerable individuals to fend for themselves. A reinvigorated social contract and the realization of social justice calls for establishing clear responsibilities of all relevant stakeholders, including business and governments. And this must form the basis for the ILO's work in the next centenary. What do we expect as workers from the centenary year? As trade unions and workers' representatives, we want to be ambitious, as the world may be a good place for some, but it is a worrying place for the many. The Future of Work report is a good start, and we need to pursue a thorough reflection on it in the upcoming months. We expect the ILO constituents at this year's ILC to commit themselves to a bold and ambitious agenda for the ILO to be laid down in a high-level declaration that provides a roadmap for its implementation. This declaration must build on the ILO's 100 years proud history and must address some serious issues that are strong concerns of workers everywhere, such as the increasing insecurity of jobs and income, rising inequalities, the attacks to workers and trade union rights, and not forgetting climate change and its impact on the world of work. Furthermore, in our view, the ILO will have to address 5 critical challenges. First of all, don't give up on standards, but provide answers. It is more important than ever to stop the race to the bottom and find new ways to regulate labor conditions in a globalizing and digitalizing world. Business and profit-making is less than ever limited by borders. Therefore, we must bring about standards on global supply chains and due diligence and further develop cross-border social dialogue. In June, we will have the second discussion on a standard about violence and harassment in the world of work. The Centenary Conference needs to adopt a convention and a recommendation on this pressing issue with a strong gender dimension, and we hope to see high tripartite commitment for this. The second issue addressed the erosion of the employment relationship as a matter of the utmost urgency. The concept of the employment relationship, on which most national and international standards are based, in the last 100 years developed to protect the most vulnerable groups of workers, is now often abused to exclude them. Therefore, the ILO must integrate platform workers, task rabbits, and other so-called new forms of work, which are not so different from the day laborers of the past, in its policies and standards to ensure that its notion of a worker remains as inclusive as it was meant to be. The third pressing issue is to safeguard and strengthen the supervisory system. Monitoring and enforcement of standards, effective complaint procedures, and standard setting to address new challenges are a unique and essential feature of the ILO. Although we have made steps forward with the Standards Initiative, this is not a safe space yet, and I call on all of you here today to ensure strong tripartite commitment for it. The fourth issue is to strengthen social dialogue and collective representation as strong and indispensable building blocks of democracy in the workplace and in the world of work at large. For this, we need a legal enabling environment at national level, with member states ratifying and applying core conventions 87 and 98. And we must develop the transnational dimensions of industrial relations to deal with the cross-border challenges of a globalizing world. The fifth is to safeguard the ILO's unique role and contribution to the multilateral system in the context of UN reform. Also here, it is good to go back to the Philadelphia Declaration and consider what is needed to realize its mandate, placing the ILO at the center of a global multilateral system to achieve social justice. To conclude, a world in turmoil requires leadership. This is what the ILO can and must offer, as much as it did so in 1919, with social justice as its guiding principle and primary goal. I look forward to work with all constituents and with the office and its highly qualified and committed staff. Many of you are here, but also in the field, to ensure that a strong ILO standing up for workers' rights and decent work in a sustainable world will play a key role into the next 100 years. Thank you.
Thank you. And to turn to our second social partner, I'd now like to invite the Employer Vice President of the ILO governing body, Mr. Matunzi Madwaba. Thank you.
I've never been more excited to stand on a platform because normally they forget this and some of us are very challenged. So thank you for the platform, whoever thought of it. Excellencies, distinguished representatives of the Ville Canton de Genève, members of the ILO Global Commission who are still here with us, friends, colleagues, good afternoon, bonjour, buenas tardes. It is a great honor and pleasure for me to speak on this very special occasion to officially launch the centenary celebrations of the International Labour Organization. Today is a very special day, and I look forward to dancing as soon as I finish here. As one of the oldest institutions in the UN system, the year of the ILO Centenary Anniversary is a milestone of global importance. We've come a long way since 1919. Interestingly, and this, we never compared notes with Guy, President Franklin Roosevelt, recalling the founding of the ILO, used these rather surprising words in 1941. To many, it was a wild dream. Who had ever heard of governments getting together to raise the standards of labor on an international plane? Wilder still was the idea that the people themselves were directly affected. The workers and the employers of the various countries should have a hand with government in determining these labor standards. In today's world, what President Roosevelt called a wild dream has come to reality. Not only has it come to reality, it continues to prove its worth. Our unique tripartite structure and social dialogue as the process and the means of interaction between governments, workers, and employers has kept us close to economic and social realities even in the turbulent times of the century. The ILO played a significant role in my own country, South Africa, in combating apartheid. I will not forget what Nelson Mandela said in his speech at the 1990 International Labour Conference, open inverted commas, despite the thickness of prison walls, all of us on Robben Island and other jails could hear your voices demanding our release very clearly. We drew inspiration from this. We thank you that you did not tire in your struggle. We thank you for your sense of humanity and your commitment to justice, which drove you to reject the very idea that we should be imprisoned and that our people should be in bondage. I think we are safe in assuming that the ILO will not fail us, close inverted commas. Therefore, for me, as well as many South Africans, in continuing and carrying on his legacy and fighting against injustices, we put faith and trust in the work of the ILO. I share the view of Madiba, that's Nelson Mandela, to those who don't know the name Madiba, that the ILO will not fail us. It is also a somewhat interesting coincidence that as the ILO celebrates its centenary, it dovetails with the ending of the Mandela Centenary, which inter alia sees our president, Matamela Cyril Ramaphosa, becoming the co-chair of the Global Commission on the Future of Work around the same time. I'm very proud of our 100-year-old heritage. What does the ILO 100-year anniversary mean for employers? My presence here symbolizes the active engagement of the employers with the ILO since its establishment in 1919. With 153 member federations in 144 countries around the world, the IOE itself will have its own centenary anniversary celebrations next year. Let me highlight that the IOE is the first business movement with a solid global commitment to social values. The founding father of the IOE, from the same country as Luc, Jules Carlier of Belgium, was an active industrialist in the coal mining and metal industry. He devoted his time to the Belgian Employers Association and had an interest in promoting social work, especially in favor of orphans. He was the first president of the IOE, and he said, and I quote, open inverted commas, "We are firm and honest, and the workers who deal with us know it," close inverted commas. He was said to be patient and at the same time energetic. He was very well respected by all. He had the ability to maintain harmony between so many often discordant ideas and trends. Now, his disposition then, almost 100 years ago, is something we would like to maintain and strengthen as an employers group, to be seen as firm and honest, patient and energetic, to maintain harmony between the many discordant ideas and trends. But more than that, we would like to engage positively and constructively, working together with all governments and workers, and help those not covered under the traditional social contract. It is under this context that I see the great potential of the ILO to be the most powerful and impactful organization among the UN family and in the world. We all need to work together to solve global labor and social challenges in a balanced manner. This is a collective effort. We support the ILO's determination to ensure full and productive employment and decent work for all, so that no one is left behind. Productive employment and decent work are the foundations to generate wealth, to eradicate poverty, and deliver dignity and democracies for people and economic growth. We should all strive to expand opportunities in productive jobs and enterprise development, which serve as a backbone for social justice and lasting peace. We, the IOE, have worked hard during the last 100 years to engage and involve our wide network of representatives and independent business organizations to uphold these values. This was from time to time an uphill battle, but definitely one path worth pursuing. We look forward to continuous engagement with the UN system, including the upcoming event at the UN General Assembly High-Level Plenary Meeting on the commemoration of the 100 years of establishment of the ILO that will take place on April 10. The second century of the ILO and our vision. The world of work is changing at an unprecedented speed, and the ILO needs to evolve with it. The ILO, particularly in the wake of its reflections on the future of work, will need to be innovative and groundbreaking in its own approaches. It will have to visualize and understand what will be required, and it will have to support the transformation of mindsets and attitudes towards work in a balanced manner. History not only helps to explain how and why past and present policies originated and evolved. Knowledge of the rich heritage of the ILO also equips the organization better to meet its present responsibilities and future challenges. We envision the ILO to reassert its role in the international arena as the leading UN specialized agency in its field of competence, employment creation, labor rights, social protection, and social dialogue. We see a strong ILO which can promote a harmonious balance between social progress and economic development. An example of this can be seen at the recent panel discussion on the Partnership for Action on the Green Economy page in Cape Town, where I was with the Director General, with Guy, on the same panel talking future of work and the green economy. In conclusion, I will conclude with the story of the 3 golden keys, which were used to open the doors of the ILO building when it was inaugurated in 1926. The 3 keys represented the governments, employers, and workers. It is my hope to see these 3 golden keys open the doors to opportunities and success in the next 100 years. I look forward to starting our centenary celebrations and dancing. Thank you. Merci beaucoup. Muchas gracias.
Ladies and gentlemen, a number of speakers this afternoon have referred to the backbone of the ILO, the staff of the ILO, and it gives me great pleasure that our final speaker this afternoon, on behalf of the staff of the ILO, both past and present, the President of the ILO Staff Union, Ms. Catherine Comte-Bergen. Thank you.
Monsieur le secrétaire d'État à l'économie, Madame l'ambassadeur, Monsieur l'ambassadeur de la Confédération helvétique, Monsieur le président du Conseil d'État de Genève, Monsieur le président du Grand Conseil de Genève, Monsieur le maire de Genève, Monsieur le président de la Fondation pour Genève, Monsieur le président du Conseil d'administration, Madame, Monsieur les membres du bureau du Conseil d'administration, Monsieur le directeur général et Messieurs et Mesdames les directeurs adjoints du directeur général. Et finalement, chers collègues, j'ai le grand honneur de m'adresser à vous aujourd'hui en tant que représentante du personnel à l'occasion du lancement officiel du centenaire de cette organisation qui nous est si chère. Je le fais non sans une certaine émotion et non sans une certaine fierté, légitimée par le mandat qui m'incombe de saluer l'engagement de mes collègues pour l'OIT. En effet, que serait une organisation telle que la nôtre, si prestigieuse et vénérable soit-elle, sans un secrétariat et un personnel engagé et compétent pour la faire fonctionner quotidiennement? Dans le cadre de cette première célébration de l'année, je laisse le soin à plus érudits que moi d'évoquer la finalité, l'utilité de notre organisation, la grande histoire finalement. Mais la responsabilité m'incombe définitivement de souligner l'importance de la somme des histoires personnelles et des histoires du personnel, qui incarnent finalement la mémoire collective de cette Organisation internationale du travail. En ce jour mémorable, je pense tout d'abord avec beaucoup d'humilité aux 13 fonctionnaires qui, à la suite de la conférence de Washington en 1919, furent confirmés par le premier directeur général, Albert Thomas, comme premier fonctionnaire titulaire du Bureau international du travail. 3 femmes et 10 hommes. Je ne vais pas dire leur nom, dont l'un d'eux nous confia encore il y a 50 ans, car encore parmi nous, lors du jubilé de 1969, combien les temps furent héroïques et incertains. Et je cite, « Il était à peu près impossible d'imaginer dans quelle profondeur d'ignorance et d'incompréhension tout le monde se débattait. Certes, chacun faisait de son mieux, mais c'était à la mode de son pays. Chacun faisait de son mieux. » C'était donc là les prémices de la fonction publique internationale. Au fil des ans, la joyeuse cacophonie ambiante des débuts et les différentes manières d'opérer ont laissé petit à petit la place à un système commun, bien ordonné des Nations Unies. Nos prédécesseurs, de véritables pionniers, il faut le reconnaître, étaient alors probablement loin d'imaginer que bien des années plus tard, la rigidité de ce même système, même si nous en avons besoin, allait causer, de temps à autre, plutôt souvent que pas souvent, je dirais, bien des soucis à la doyenne des organisations et à son personnel. En ce jour mémorable, je salue bien évidemment les premiers artisans du dialogue social interne qui, en 1920, juste un an après la création de l'OIT, ont décidé souverainement d'organiser une assemblée générale fondatrice d'un syndicat du personnel qui, depuis plus de 99 ans, et par l'ensemble de ses activités, s'est affirmé comme une force administrative et politique importante qui a exercé son influence sur les conditions de travail et de carrière de chaque fonctionnaire du Bureau international du travail. En ce jour mémorable, je rends hommage aux innombrables femmes et hommes, qu'ils aient travaillé 3 jours, 3 semaines, 3 mois, 3 ans ou 3 décennies au service de cette organisation, qu'ils soient encore actifs, retraités ou qu'ils nous aient déjà quittés. En ce jour mémorable, j'ai une pensée particulière pour toutes les femmes et les hommes qui ont payé de leur vie dans l'exercice de leurs fonctions, pour défendre les valeurs et principes de l'organisation. Enfin, ce jour mémorable, j'ai bien sûr une pensée solidaire et affectueuse pour tous nos collègues travaillant sur le terrain et au centre de Turin, qui ne peuvent assister en personne à cette cérémonie, travaillant dans les 5 régions du monde, dans des conditions parfois précaires et dangereuses, mais où la présence de l'OIT a été, demeure et sera toujours indispensable. Voilà, mon propos fut sans doute un peu long, mais un siècle d'engagement du personnel au service du travail décent et de la justice sociale vaut bien 5 minutes de discours. Au nom du syndicat du personnel de l'OIT, je souhaite bon anniversaire et longue vie à l'OIT.
Ladies and gentlemen, that brings us to the end of our speakers this afternoon. So now I would invite you all to locate a glass of champagne. I hope while everyone's been speaking, they've been poured behind us. If we could ask you to take a glass of champagne, and I will invite the Director General to toast the ILO Centenary. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, no more speeches, you'll be lucky to hear. So the toast is to the centenaire, the ILO, the future. Santé.
Wild dream turn reality, a new way from ashes of the old. For the people who don't have all the riches, it's the right to live and not simply exist. But we want the bread and we need decent work too. I'll stand here beside you to guide you across all the rubble. I'll be a partner, universal peace, seeking social justice. 'Cause together we're strong and it won't be long. No, new age is here, and we've got the vision. All the justice we've been bridging ain't the better way. 100 years on this mission for the human condition. Read all about it. The world is a place you can't survive without a living. This world is a place, you can't survive without a living, no. Together we can make it, and together we persist. Together we can make it, together we persist. We'll go as far as we can. We've been working for this chance, better future, better ways. We deserve better days. Gonna make it happen. So many voices say the same. Let's be the change tomorrow brings. New age your partner in peace.